relationship. Hi everyone, my name is Yumna Mia and I'm doing a little presentation on numbers, operations, and relationships. The reason for this presentation is to help us understand how to make our lessons more stimulating and prevent mathematics anxiety in our students and create a positive attitudes for them towards mathematics, to help them learn how to develop a positive attitude towards mathematics. So let's get into it. What is the CAPS document? This is something that we have done when doing our teaching practice, when studying, teaching. The CAPS document. What is it though? Well, the CAPS document is basically a guide that was created for teachers by the Department of Education in South Africa. It is here to assist us when doing our lesson planning and show us which content carries the most weighting and why it's so important. It also helps us better plan our lesson plans. Now, what are content? Content areas are basically topics that we have in the CAPS document. And in the mathematics document, there are 5 content areas. So let's look at them. There's numbers, operations, and relationships, patterns, functions, and algebra, space and shape in terms of geometry, measurement, and data handling. Now, the weightings of each content area, as you can see here, is not so great in terms of everything else besides numbers, operations, and relationships. But at the end of the day, it all equals to 100%. Now, why does numbers, operations, and relationships have the most weight? Numbers, operations, and relationships basically are the building blocks for mathematics in terms of um, foundation phase. It teaches the children to navigate through mathematical problems and it helps them learn to calculate and build a basic understanding of mathematics. So, my learning theory and why my students show more growth. Well, my learners show a lot of growth in mathematics because I believe that when you teach mathematics, it should be an active lesson. Remember that these are young children, so they get bored very easily. And also because when you're doing a sit down lesson, children will get distracted and everybody learns differently in the classroom. So your lessons have to cater to all of your learners. Children should be able to not only use what is in the classroom, but they should use what is outside of the classroom as well. Meaning, when you make a lesson, allow them to go and collect things like leaves or twigs or stones to come and use to do their calculations. They could also use what they feel from around the classroom. That is why you create a stimulating classroom. In your classroom, you should have mathematical charts, abacus, beads, things like that. Anything that children can get their hands on to do calculations that could be useful for them when doing mathematics. Now, what is the learning theory that I use? I use the principles of constructivism. And basically, it states that children are blank slates. They build their own learning. What does it mean to this? When they learn, they give meaning to the prior knowledge. Basically, every little bit of knowledge that they have acquired in the years prior or in the terms prior to the lesson that we're doing today. They take that knowledge and they apply it to the lesson. They formulate their own calculations, they write it down, they find ways to solve it. That is critical thinking. Now, like I said, an environment plays a major role in their mathematical development, which is why I said you should have a stimulating classroom and anything that children can get their hands on to use for mathematical calculations. You should keep it in your classroom. This makes their lives a lot easier and makes it more fun because they get to pick something instead of using something that would be a bit boring. Now let's move on to creating a love for mathematics. When you create a love for mathematics, you should encourage children to think autonomously, meaning you should encourage them to use critical thinking. Don't tell them the answers or hint the answers to them unless you can see that they are absolutely struggling. Create a stimulating classroom by having charts and posters up in your classroom the children can look at and use to answer questions. Another thing you can do is encourage mathematics discussions. You can allow children to bounce their ideas off of each other and off of you when it comes to the calculations, and you can correct them and help them and encourage them and give them feedback and show them how things could be done differently in terms of their calculations. Moving on to creating a fun lesson plan. So let's look at my introduction. When you create a lesson plan, you have to recap your past lessons. You can see here that I use a number line to count forwards and backwards to 50, and I use roll-ups for addition and subtraction. So basically, I have 5 roll-ups and I lost 3 roll-ups. How many roll-ups do I have left? These are the types of questions that I would be asking while doing addition and subtraction. Then you also have estimation. For estimation, I took a flip file because it's an everyday item that children use. So I would ask the question, um, say my file has 30 pockets, or you could say 30 sleeves for them to understand better. If I use 10 sleeves in my flip file, how many sleeves do I have left? The children have to give you an answer. This is not so difficult, but it's not too easy either. It is the right amount of critical thinking needed to solve that equation. Let us move on to rotational activities. So, what are rotational activities and how does it benefit our learners? Rotational activities is little stations set up by the teacher. You can have between 5 stations or any amount that suits the size of your classroom. At each station contains a different activity. So every station has to contain a different activity, and these activities are based on prior knowledge so that your children can do these activities on their own. And the activities have to be 10 to 15 minutes long. So my rotational activities are 15 minutes long, and my children are divided in groups, and some of it is group work and some of it is individual work. However, everything is based on prior knowledge. So what are my mathematics station? My first station is my counting station. My learners will have a orange container full of numbers. As you can see, I have the numbers scattered out there to show you and give you an idea of the numbers that I have. The numbers are counting in twos, threes, and fives, and it ranges all the way from 0 up to 100. The children have to take them out of the container and put them in the right cup. One cup is for counting in twos, one cup is for counting in threes, and one cup is for counting in fives. My second is for addition and subtraction. This will require the children to have their books. They will have to open up to a new page and write the date down, and they will have the blue cards for addition and the green cards for subtraction. They will be required to do the blue cards first, answer them correctly using their abacus or their roll-ups or anything they feel that they would like to use, and then move on to the green cards, which is subtraction. And they, like I said, in the first time, they would be encouraged to use anything that they would like to use as long as it is being used in the mathematical context. My third is money. Now, this will also require them to do writing work, and they will have word sums already written for them in their book by the time they get to this activity. They will have to use the coins that I have provided for them by making those coins myself. They would have to use those coins that are 5 rands, 1 rands, 2 rands, 50 cents, 20 cents, and 10 cents, and they would have to solve their problem sums. For example, Tambi went to the shop. She had 5 rand. Tembi wanted a pack of chips that was 2 rand. How much of money would Tembi have left if she bought the pack of chips that is 2 rand? That will be the sums that the children would be working with at this stage. If they need any help, there's no problem in coming and asking me for help once the teacher-led activity has been completed. Now my fourth This station is a teacher-led station, and it will basically go as follows. Because of it being a teacher-led station, it means that it is a new topic that is being taught. And so for this station, I am using colorful sticks, and the children will have to have their books out in front of them. So this is a describe and compare lesson, meaning children will be learning terminology such as less than, greater than, the same as, or just as many. Now, they would have questions such as, there are 6 orange sticks and 3 purple sticks. Which sticks is more than, or which sticks is less than? And they would have to answer this question for me. But I will also teach the lesson to them. I would explain it to them and help them along the way, encouraging them with their answers and telling them how to do this and how to figure it out. Another thing that we would like to do with this lesson is smallest to greatest. They would have to organize the sticks from smallest to greatest, and then they would have to write it down in their books. Now, we can also use ordinal numbers and say the orange is first, the purple is second, green is third, blue is fourth, red is fifth, etc. The ordinal numbers is based on prior knowledge, and it shows them how they can implement it in doing things every day. Moving on to the conclusion. When When doing a conclusion, you need to ensure that you provide feedback and encouragement to your learners. You have to make sure that they understand the work that you set for them, and you have to make sure that they understand the lesson. You also need to check if the outcomes that you set for your learners have been met. If not, then it would be nice to recap the activity the next day or during the day itself if you have time. Now, what are manipulatives and worksheets? Worksheets are basically a tool that is something that teachers use. But what are manipulatives? Manipulatives is not a mathematics concept, but is rather an activity that gives children a hands-on experience. It demonstrates the learning process and encourages critical thinking by giving children a physical way to solve a problem. Now, why must we not use worksheets? Like I said, worksheets is a tool used widely by teachers. But why must we not use them? Well, worksheets do not encourage critical thinking in a classroom. It also does not cater for all learning types, and it tends to bore children while doing their lesson. So stay away from using worksheets as much as possible. Now let's look at the take-home points. Remember that every child in your classroom has different learning styles, and therefore your lesson needs to cater for each child. Never use worksheets because they are not a good tool. Always use manipulatives and substitute your lessons with games. Create a fun mathematics classroom by making it stimulating and encouraging discussions. If you guys would like to see anything else where I've gotten information from, please take a look at my reference list. Thank you so much for watching.